So she gets you ready. You sit on the bench. Then what?
So I sit on the bench. The last thing I do before I lay back.
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. Hey guys, if you like and want to support the podcast, remember we have limited edition items. These items can range anywhere from t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, cups. You never know what you're going to get. Check them out at www.elitefts.com.
Is I visualize, it's like just within seconds, but I'm visualizing the weight in my hands, touching, pressing. I visualize the entire lift. Sometimes I'll, give me a head nod like, okay, that's the last thing I think of before I lay down, and then just the habits and the nature just kind of takes over. The same thing I've been doing for 18 years on the setup, just kind of like, okay, now it's time to work. Fuck thinking, just do it. Lay down. Setup, I'll just talk about the current setup with the band shirts. That's what I'm currently doing. Lay down. I grab the bar pronated right in the middle, not even like full grip, just like I'm on the bar. I lay there for a quick second, get some breath. Like Dean, my one training partner, always says, get some air, breathe, don't start getting over exaggerated. Just sit, relax, just chill, get some breaths. When I'm ready to go, pick myself up off the bench, which is kind of hard when I got sticky on my back. Plant my shoulder blades, do all that classic stuff, push with the legs, get into that wedge position, stretch the shirt over your body, start setting the arch, pinch the shoulder blades. I'm staying here, especially in the band shirts. This is not my job, getting my hands out. That's his job. I call it riding the rail, something we did earlier today, where I just hold the bar. They push my hands out while holding the bar. I ride the rail out. Instead of trying to come out and around the bar, all that difficult shit, I just hold here and just go boop, boop, straight out like that. Just make sure the most important thing with these thick-ass band shirts, I wanted to pull you forward, is just keeping your shoulder blades back. That is the hardest fucking thing to do. It takes so much upper back strength, but also upper back endurance to accomplish that, which is where all my back training comes into play. And then just all the classic stuff, hand off, press, rack.
Okay, so when you lower, are you tucking or elbows out?
I'm not forcibly trying to tuck very hard. I find a position where my elbows belong and I just stay there. So I'd say as I break at the elbows, I will determine where I want them to be and ride that same position down the whole way. So I'm not starting flared and then really exaggerating the tuck in the bottom. I'm just staying in a neutral. I'm not flared. I'm in a tucked position, but I'm not actively doing anything on the way down.
Okay.
It's in one position. I stay there. Simplify it. I don't like things to be too complicated. And this can be complicated, this whole thing. But I listened to a few people that were telling me in the band shirts that you have to flare. Like that's how they work. I'm like, all right, kill. I'll do that shit. 1,000 pounds, flared elbows, my shoulder would pop. Be down for 4 weeks. Like, okay, I'm not doing that shit. I know how to bench and equipment. So, fuck that shit. So I just started benching like I did my polys for 13 years. Tuck, pick the head up, go low on the belly. All that shit I learned at Blackstone's, and they just started working consistently. That's where I've had all the success the last couple of years.
Okay. And then on the way up, say it starts to stall 3/4 up. Is there any... what do I want to say? Acrobatics. Like, are you trying to let the bar drift towards the J cups and turn elbows out, or are you just trying to push through it?
I'm not trying to push through it. I know it's called a bench press.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to necessarily push. I'm trying to extend as hard as I can.
What do you mean?
So instead of trying to think about, the whole cue, if you're pressing, you get to that sticking point we're talking about, and then the cue is, rip the bar apart, start spreading the bar apart to activate the triceps.
Yeah.
I do that at the beginning. I don't wait till the end. I come down to touch. The first thing I want to do is to activate the triceps. I extend in the bottom so I can follow through with a tricep dominant press. So I don't have that two-step motion on the way up. It's one fluid motion all the way up. So when I stall, I've gotten in trouble going back over the face too much, put the weight in the rack too early, and almost dump it. So I'm keeping it mostly over the body. There's minuscule amount of back. So the hill is very steep.
Yeah. I was going to say, with your weights, if it's going back, you're fucked.
You're screwed.
There's no spotters that are going to.
That's where all these habits we have of like our team, our spotters come in here. Like I knew I was going to be cool.
Yeah.
Like I knew, no doubt. But things like the body savers.
Yeah.
Just in that instance, where my crew's caught weight before. 1,400 pounds, took a shit with it one day, got it, no problem. But our rule is I don't bench without body savers.
Mm-hmm.
If I was we're doing make believe. If I was the CEO of powerlifting, I had this question on a podcast a while ago. I was like, that's awesome. So if I was the CEO of powerlifting, it came down to would I make the wider pads like standard in all feds or make body savers mandatory? And I went with that one. I think body savers should be a non-negotiable requirement. And not just having them on the bench, actually moving them up and down.
Yeah, it should be part of your when you check in.
Yes.
It's like here's like a rack height.
Rack height,
Yeah.
Bench height, the table says, all right, Joe Schmuckatelli up. Rack height is 2 holes showing. Body savers are 9 holes showing.
Yeah.
For each lifter, so that if the bar does fall, it's going to fall half inch.
Mm-hmm.
That should be non-negotiable, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've saved my ass more than once. Probably more than on both hands, I'd say, with really serious weight. And a lot of feds don't use them, and it really irritates me. Like how, I know we all sign the waivers.
Yeah.
I get that. But the meet director should be responsible enough to give a shit about the lifter. And I don't care. I don't give a shit who you are. If you had 5 enormous dudes, 2 on each side, 1 in the middle on that bar.
They're not catching.
No, you're not. I was trying to do a meet a few years ago that was within reasonable driving distance. It was like 45 minutes. Awesome. And they try. I said, hey, I have to do this now. I have to call and say, what kind of bench are you using? What kind of bar? What kind of plates? Like I'm that guy now. I have to be. And I said, I'm trying to bench 1,000 pounds for the first time. I hadn't done that lift yet. And I said, okay, cool. Okay, Iron Wolf bar, cool. Hundreds, that's cool. That's fine. Body savers? He's like, no, but we got world-class spotters. I said, hey, sorry to waste your time. Not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all in with this shit. Trust me, we both are. But I will not die because of that.
Well, it's a controllable too.
Yeah.
Right. That's life, right? You can you deal with it's risk management.
Oh yeah.
Like what can you control? What can you not control?
Yes, and that I feel like me being responsible too. Like I won't go to a meet that doesn't use them, and just expect that. But it's something I can't control because I can choose where I go. No one tells me where I go. I go where I want to, and I compete where I want to. And I go with the feds that are equip lifter friendly, have the right equipment, the right bars, and body savers on the bench.
Yeah.
Simple.
And you've been in the sport for over a decade. Came in before band shirts. You didn't come in before multiply, but you came in before what I would call gangster multiply.
Okay, yeah.
Right, because Karen Double denim was a bitch. It's probably the hardest shirt to ever learn how to use.
Yes.
And then it migrated into poly, which I'm using the word very tentatively, was a little easier to learn. There's still a big learning curve in multiply, but way different than the denim. So it became, here's where the argument comes, where with the band shirts, I feel like I've been like the judge on the jury, and I've heard both sides of the case so many times, right?
Sure.
And oddly enough, I really don't give a fuck. But anyhow.
Oddly enough.
It's oddly enough, right? I've been around this shit since I was 13 years old. That nothing's going to come around that I haven't seen before.
Sure.
The one thing that I didn't consider from the very first was acquiring the skill to use the gear, right? To where you take the multiply when you're trying to use it. Single ply is a motherfucker too, though.
It is.
There's a long learning curve.
Yes.
Some people never learn it. Where the counter to that was, well, the learning curve with the band shirts isn't as long. And I'm like, I don't know if I can say that's true or not true. First, you know, it's an assumption. I sit very quietly on assumptions.
Sure.
Because what does that mean? But you've used all of them.
Yes.
Right? So the learning curves are going to be different with all of them. And I do think that them classifying as unlimited actually solves all the debates that I thought were valid.
It does.
Like it's changing totals.
Yep.
That was the biggest thing that was like, ooh, shit. Yeah, changing totals is a little weird.
Yes.
Changing bench records, I can fall on both sides of that one. Like, well, you know what? The first shirt changed every bench record of Raw people before Raw was a thing.
Sure.
They forget that argument, right? Because everything was Raw for a while.
Yes.
Then the first shirt came around, which gave you
40
10,
pounds.
40, 15,
I overshot
whatever.
it.
Well, I mean, when I first had my first shirt, it was in like an insert blast shirt. All it did was like tear the shit out of your armpits. Maybe 15 pounds.
Super.
But I'm sure if I learned how to use it, 40, right? It's still a decent percent over, but enough to break every record that existed before that.
Sure.
So it was kind of that whole thing.
Yeah.
Where out of the three, which was the longest learning curve for you? Brandon, that's a fucked up question though too, because you learned in a Karen Denham.
Yeah.
That was a bitch.
Adam Hicks told me when I was 18, he said, if you can learn to bench in this, you can bench in anything.
Pretty much.
And it's been true to this day. It took me 6 months to get my first weight to touch in the gym.
Yeah.
Let alone going to a meet and all the stressors of the meet and the whatevers. But it was 550. I'll never forget that day. It was like being fucked for the first time. Holy shit, the pressure. Because, you know, I was always coming about that close to touching.
Yeah.
But that day that I finally committed and got that touch, the eyes and I was like, Jesus, that's what it's like to touch. No. Shortly after, so I used that same shirt. I benched 550 in it the first time ever. I used that exact same shirt with, you know, it had a tear right here and a patch over here. It was fucking awesome. I wish I could find that damn thing. And I used that exact same shirt relatively at the same body weight to eventually bench 700 pounds. As I was 19 when I did it. That's how I got sponsored with Anderson. And then they said, what do you need? Ken took me under his wing real quick and said, what do you need? I said, double ply something, because that's all I knew was double ply. So I didn't have to learn almost anything going into poly. So I think that the challenge was more as the weights increased, manipulating the gear, changing sizes, getting this altered. There was no, like, from going from denim to poly, there was nothing. There was no learning whatsoever, because that denim was so fucking hard to learn. And again, I went from 550 all the way to 700 with it.
Well, they're both still what I would consider compression.
Yes.
Where, you know, band is more extension.
Elastic.
Yeah. Different.
Elastic storage. There's some compression when you get into these all these multiple layers. You're going to have some.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more elastic storage, but yeah, and I was using katanas.
Okay.
I used any and all versions of katanas from 19 years old to 30.
Okay.
Or 31, whatever. 13 years, basically. All katanas. Double ply, single ply, grid stitch, triple ply, open back, close back, anything you could think of. It was all katanas. All variations, all different styles. That's what I knew and learned. I mastered that shit real quick. Went from, you know, I think my first competition with a katana, still at 19, I benched 740. And I'll never forget that day, because Lou called me shortly after, and he was like, yeah. He was talking to me on the phone and wanted me to come lift at Westside. He bragged to me, you know, he did his whole like 15-minute spiel on what they've done, and he mentioned, I think his name was, I don't want to get it wrong, Mike Brown. I think had the teenage bench record at 735. So I had benched 740 on purpose, because I had talked to him the first time I had benched, I think in the 6s. I think Rusty Bluck actually got me on the phone with Lou, told me the whole spiel, and mentioned Mike Brown's number, 735. And I was like, okay. Because he said, you need to come here to be the best. And I never agreed with that. And no disrespect, I don't want to do that to Lou, but I never agreed that I needed to be at Westside to be the best in the world. So I purposely, not training at Westside, bench 740 at 220, not 315. And I told Lou about it, and of course he wasn't impressed. Whatever. I knew he wasn't going to be, even at that age. But so that was, so yeah, there was no, anyway, there was no real learning between the two. The katanas are very stiff, very hard to learn, just like a denim. Very similar in groove, nice and low on the belly, tucking and all that good stuff. So that's why the band shirts, I had a slight learning curve because, again, I was being told to flare.
Well, before that learning curve and before you actually made the jump into that, how did you feel about them before getting in them?
I was openly against them.
Okay.
Because at that time, there wasn't the separation. They said, oh yeah, that's multiply. And a bunch of us were like, no, that's not multiply. This is, because for years, and I was, of course, me being the researcher I was printing stuff out and researching all these things, and and Rich Lack, when he was at his prime and his top, first man to bench 1,000 pounds. Who the fuck doesn't know who Gene Richlack is? He had been accused, and not just him, this is just an example, but it was in an interview, in an article, he had been accused of like hiding bungee cords in his shirts and stuff, which that's elastic, that is illegal. So when they first came out, and I was like, well, these are shirts made of nothing but elastic material. But I came from a world of multiply poly.
Yeah.
So at first, when those came out and they were just lumped in with multiply, and a bunch of us were like, no, that's something else. It's cool, but like that's not multiply. So we got that big win like a couple of years ago, when they finally decided, okay, this is unlimited. So when it became a separate division, and that solved all the problems. I'm like, okay, now it's fucking awesome. Now I want to do it.
So it's hard to debate against at this point.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So it is what it is.
It is, and I think it's awesome. I am really glad and very privileged and very excited and happy to work with like Rob Farrell.
Yeah.
Anderson picked up Rob Farrell as being, or the Farrell product anyway, being the main distributor for Rob. So I get to work with both. And I am really glad I got to know Rob and his mom and Tiffany and Logan really well, because they're just amazing people. And they're just so giving. I don't know who else gives that much money back to the sport as Rob does. Seemingly for nothing in return. He just gives and gives and gives. So it's been fun. I won't lie. It's been a blast doing this shit. Really enjoy it. But it was that separation of the categories is where I finally said, okay, now I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I think the actual, if I can pinpoint the event that pushed me over the edge to do it was, it's not on my arm, June of 21. That was the most pivotal moment in my career, arguably almost to the date, is where I benched 1120 in single ply. And at the time, that was the heaviest bench ever done in history, regardless of age, weight class, drugs, no drugs, multiply, single ply, nothing. Band shirts even, I had surpassed it all in single ply. A few months later, at the same meet location, York Barbell in Pennsylvania, did another meet there. I bombed out because I was too bloated. Still doing single ply. Tiny Meeker had flown up and surpassed that mark with 1125 in a multiply band shirt, multi-layered band shirt. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to do it. I'm going to wear the same shit all these guys are doing, and I'm going to see what I can do. And that was in November, so December, January, February, end of February, so about 3 months of training in one. That's where I did the 1320.
How long did it take you to get acclimated to it?
Not long. So that's the thing too, is in poly, I had worked up to weights in the 1200s. I think the most I'd handled in the poly was 1,300 pounds. I don't know how the hell I did that. It was fucking hard as hell. So I didn't have to acclimate to the weights as much because the weights were relatively the same. Now I think in January, about a month and a half before that meet, is when I handled 1,400 for the first time. That was wild.
Yeah.
That was crazy. But yeah, no, right. Once I learned that I can just bench normal, that was the thing. When I realized, okay, fuck this shit, let's tuck and just bench like I'm wearing a katana, it clicked. and it started working every single time I put it on. So I'd say that probably took about maybe 3 or 4 workouts to figure that part out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the acclimation was over. Now it was just benching.
Okay. Well, there's for the weights that you're lifting, and it's the weights that I like. It's a carryover thing. It's bones become part of the recovery process.
Oh boy,
right?
Bone,
right? And it's obviously it's going to be more so for you that's on the upper echelon, the higher edge of that, but it's also going to be for somebody that normally just benches 300 pounds, but now they're trying to bench 500, and they're not taking the time.
Yes.
You know, so.
Oh yeah, we've seen arm breaks left and right.
Well, the fractures before that, the issues are going to come before that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I had the benefit where I had scratched and crawled my way up in katanas from in the 700s all the way up to handling. I'm saying that handling and training 1300.
Okay.
Very slowly over time. I've never had issues with my bones. Now the first time I went to Rob's for the first time ever, about 4 or 5 months ago, and worked up to the heaviest weight I had handled in training at that point was 1450. One board, something like that. And I always have pain in my forearms. It's one of the heels of my training right now. It's just I have forearm pain a lot. That's the most exposed part of the bench.
You ever think about wrapping it just for training?
We have a motto. We have several mottos.
Yeah.
One of them is train how you compete.
Got it.
So if I can't use it in a meet, I don't use it in training. I should probably consider it. I'm talking to Tom about like recovery and stuff, but magnesium oils and things like that. But I forget where I was going with that. What was I talking about?
Well, we were talking about the bones, the fractures,
the bones.
recoveries, and acclimation.
Yeah. So no, I went to 1450, and I had some very very familiar but like intense pain. And that was the most weight I had handled by about 20 to 30 pounds. And I was like, what if that was the weight that finally fractured something?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can feel bone fractures. It's when a bone breaks and all the soft tissue is damaged. I don't think bone has nerves, if I'm correct about that. But so I went to one of my sponsors down south is Alive by Design, and it's a chiropractic practice by Jericho is his name, the owner. And I said, hey man, I called him the next day. I said, hey, do you know of anybody who can just maybe get me an X-ray? Like whatever it costs. He's like, oh, just come here, I'll do it for you. So I went to Jericho. We did an X-ray on the arm. Normal. There's nothing there. It's just pissed off soft tissue. So I've since went above that weight. I think the highest I've gone in training is like 1463, still with no issues. So bone is something that a lot of people don't consider that they really need to. It's one of those things that if you don't use it, you lose it. That's actually how it works. Same thing with muscle. It's degenerative. And why the astronauts have so much trouble and things like that. So,
well, that would explain why you go heavy as frequently as you do.
Yes.
But you still need to recover from what you're doing, which is the caveat.
Yeah, and it's so now it's not just muscle and tissue and skin, because you rip your skin off and stuff. Now it's even deeper. It's bones. Like all those things have to be kept in check and recover. So it's kind of wild. And I just, man, that's just, one of the nastiest things you can watch is someone's arm breaking in half.
No, I've seen several.
You have.
But I personally think, and this is just talking, right, that when you were dealing with the bench shirts at that time that were so fucking tight on the forearms, now you're cutting circulation off of the hands as well, which that can't help.
No.
And where with the shirts that came later, the bicep is not as tight, right? Especially the band shirts. It's more, it's behind, it's open. But even with the later iterations of the bench shirt, it's tight, but it's only tight enough to kind of hook the bicep.
Okay.
Because isn't that really all this really does here for the bicep?
Like an anchor.
Like an anchor, the bicep, and then everything else.
Sure.
And I think that negated the problem until the weights got heavier, and that became the next thing.
I mean, the last all of 2021, I was in single ply, and single ply has to be worn so much different than multiply for it to work. Where I in fact, squeezing my ass into a brand new single ply can take. It's kind of like those old days you talk about, the old shirts that took like 50 minutes to get into but gave you 40 pounds.
Yeah.
No, actually, when I get into a new single ply, it takes 15 to 20 minutes and 2 or 3 people to squeeze me into one. Like, it is so damn tight, but that's how single ply works.
It kind of, well, for me, it always kind of sucked too, because you can't change it once it's on.
Yes. Well, and that, you know, I think single plies, especially the katanas, are extraordinarily versatile pieces of equipment, but the pain in the ass part, because I don't adjust my polys by pulling the neck down.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't like that. I don't like to use that. So like SDPs, I think you bench with the collars. I think that's how they're supposed to be worn.
Yeah, but I always had a problem with that, because the collar stretches, it never goes
See,
back.
that's the same thing with the katanas. They are stiffer material, but even such. So I keep that collar up. I want to utilize as much chest plate as I possibly can, more surface area. So the way I adjust my katanas is by torquing the sleeves.
Yeah, but you can't do that once it's on.
You have to take the fucking thing off and put it back on.
Yeah.
If it's really tight, it makes it real fucking fun.
Oh, and if it's a closed back, that sucks too.
Well, that's how I wear my single plies. I'm really drawn to single ply because it still truly entails what a bench shirt is. Like a shirt, closed back, closed neck. That's how. Now I could take some scissors and cut a V in the top, but I like to wear my single plies the way they were designed. It's closed back. But yeah, I've had to take the shirt off, torque the sleeves, put it back on with relative success with that. But I hate pulling the necks down. I just don't like that at all. I've never liked doing that. Yeah, I forget where we were going, but
with the sleeves, turning the sleeves and stuff like that is where the multiply it's
adjustability. That's
kind of a role, but not so much as it was as a single ply.
Yes, yeah. Now I guess going back to when I was in multiply, there was a little bit more. I've done more single ply than I have multiply. When I look at all the lifts I've done, I think more of them have been single ply. But multiply, it was more like maybe a little bit of neck movement and a lot of like adjusting the back straps, wearing them loose, wearing them tight. The tighter you wear them, the more it sucks to your body, the tighter the shirt becomes before the lift starts. So I never messed with sleeves until I was really prominent into the single ply benching. But you're right. Once you put it on, you're pretty much, that's how it is. And that's, which is why the band shirts are so cool, because you can get them on and off in just seconds and rest and like relax between sets.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Nice for her. Nice for her as well.
Yeah. For everybody else around it. Let's take a bathroom break real quick, and then we'll come back and do some Q&As.
Cool.
Okay, we are back. We just had a pretty interesting conversation in regards to what a 1,000-pound bench press is today, where the argument is a lot of the multiply that a lot more people now are benching 1,000 pounds than ever before, because they're doing so in a bandy shirt, or whatever people want to call it, a band shirt or whatever it's going to be.
Sure.
And what I said was, the argument becomes a very interesting argument, because the gear people are just complaining about better geared lifts.
Why should anyone join this Discord? Why wouldn't you want to? It's not fake, it's genuine, it's authentic, it's well worth it. The Discord has been nothing short of meeting new people who are incredibly like-minded, giving each other a bunch of ball busting, but also being there to support each other in whatever life throws their way. The best part of it for me has also been able to connect with lifters of all levels, help coach, get coached, and also connect with other new fathers who are enjoying the journey of lifting and trying to balance that out. It's the glue that holds all of us together. A common interest will being people from different walks of life, people who are multimillionaires, these characters and everything else in between, united under one thing, the pursuit of strength.
I think most of us would agree that getting a coach is a great step forward that an athlete can make to make greater progress. But what if you had two coaches? What if you had a whole bunch of coaches and a whole bunch of driven elite level athletes and like-minded people all in your corner trying to make you better? That's exactly what you're going to get with the Table Talk Discord crew.
All right, guys, thanks for watching the video to the end. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and click here, 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 or here for more videos.